and today I'm going to show you how to cover a cupcake in fondant. I'll also show you how to use an impression mat to give your cupcakes a textured look. These are really easy techniques that I'll show you today that will allow you to make professional looking cupcakes in your own home for your next party. Firstly, I'll show you the materials we're going to be using today. We've got our cupcakes, we've got ganache. Ganache is made from cream and chocolate, 1 part cream to 2 parts chocolate. You put it in the microwave in a microwave safe bowl. It's quite a thin consistency that will be really good for spreading onto our cupcakes. I've got a small rolling pin, a kitchen knife, I've got our fondant. Now, probably the #1 question I get asked is the difference between all different types of icings. So I thought I'd go through quickly what the different icings are. So buttercream is the icing that you use on cupcakes. So you might pipe with it, or you can spread it over a cake. It's spreadable. It's very thin. It's not like this is fondant. It's got a few different names. RTR, which is ready to roll icing. This is you roll this out, unlike the buttercream, which you spread with a knife. This is what you traditionally see on wedding cakes. You know, the beautiful white wedding cakes that you see. This is what is used. We also use something called gumpaste, which is actually what you use to make flowers out of, or figurines, you know, like a bride or groom figurine that's on the top of a cake. That goes really hard. It's not a material that you use on top of a cupcake because it does go very, very hard, which is, you know, great for flowers, great for figure modeling, something that someone's probably not going to eat, you know, as part of their cake. So today we're going to be using the fondant. Always remember to cover your fondant because it does go dry. It's a really important tip to remember. You'll know if your fondant has gone a little dry because it will start to crack a bit and it'll be really unworkable. We're also going to be using some circle cutters. They will cut out the fondant that we'll put onto the cupcakes. I have some edible glue here. This is made from CMC powder and water mixed together, and it makes a nice edible glue that I can stick the decorations onto the cupcakes. And here are the decorations. It'll show you a few different types of things that you can use on your cupcakes. Oh, the last thing that I'll show you is the impression mat that we're going to use. If you don't want to go to the expense of buying a professional impression mat, you can look around the home and find things that have impressions on them, such as a lace tablecloth. Just make sure when you are using these items that you find around the home that they are being used on food, and to make sure that they are food safe. So now we're going to prepare our cupcakes. We're going to take one of our cupcakes, our ganache, and the kitchen knife. Put a little bit of ganache in the middle of the cupcake. Just spreading it around. This is why it's important to have it at a thin consistency so you can spread it. It's better if you don't put it all the way around the outside, and you'll see that when we come to actually putting the fondant over the top, it can get a little messy around the outside. So the best thing to do with when you're doing your cupcakes is actually to ganache them all at the one time. I'm only doing 4 cupcakes today, but if you had 24, do all the cupcakes at the same time. This gives it a little bit more time to set. It's not as sticky when we need to put the fondant on. So what I'll do is I'll continue to do this exactly the same way, a little bit of ganache in the middle, and I'll see you back here once I've done that. Now we're going to cover the cupcakes in fondant. We'll take our fondant. I'll show you the first way without any texture, and then I'll show you again using the impression mat. So you kind of work with your fondant to make it a little bit soft and easier to roll. Put it on your mat. Now sometimes it's best if you take a little bit of shortening. It's not always necessary, but a little bit of shortening or anything that kind of will help you, make it a little less sticky, and and that will make sure that the icing comes off quite easily. So you don't want the icing to be too thick because it's going to go on a cupcake and someone's going to eat that. So you want to make sure it's just a nice kind of thickness. You know, probably 1/4 centimetre is quite fine. So take your cupcake, and I'll take this cupcake for starters. I'm going to measure it. Now, you can, with these sets that you can get from any cake decorating store or homeware store, they come with heaps of different sizes of circles. So I know today that I might need probably these two, but it does come with lots of different shapes. So basically just measure your cupcake, make sure that the circle cutter is bigger than your actual cupcake. This will allow us to kind of tuck the fondant in at the end. It'll make more sense when I show you what we're doing. So, and as I said before, the fondant does dry out quite quickly, so make sure you do work at a relatively quick speed. Don't cut, if you're doing 24 cupcakes, don't cut 24 circles out at one time if you don't think you're going to be fast enough to put them on quickly. So, I've got the circle of fondant here, and this is probably the hardest part out of the whole process. I'm going to just put the circle over the cupcake, make sure it's in the center, and tuck it in. And when we were putting the ganache on, if you put the ganache all the way around the edges, you might have actually found that the ganache comes out the side and you don't get this nice edge here. If you push it down, your ganache will start to go all the way around as well. But you also want to keep it a little dome too, because that makes it look quite nice. So now I'm going to show you our second technique. That's using the impression mat to give your cupcake a nice texture at the top. So I've got my cupcake. This time we're going to use some purple fondant. Now, if you want to colour, usually your fondant will come in a white colour. You can buy it in different colours. However, if you do want to colour it yourself, use a gel colouring rather than just a liquid colouring that you find at the supermarket. The gel is a little bit thicker. It's not watery. It won't make your fondant go runny, and ideally it gives it a bit of more of a bright colour as well. So first of all, I'm just going to roll the fondant out just as we did last time to about 1/4 centimetre thickness. And I'm going to get my impression mat. Now, just making sure that the impression, which is the bit where it's a little bit deeper, is actually on the bottom, is actually onto the fondant. And this is only a small bit of fondant here, so I could probably use my hand, but I'll show you with a rolling pin anyway. If you're doing larger bits of fondant, it's probably easier to, just use a rolling pin. But do that along the fondant. Doesn't have to be too hard. You lift it up, and you've got an impression on your fondant. So now you'll do it exactly the way that we did the other cupcake, and that's using your cutter. We'll just make sure it is the right cutter. It's a little bit bigger than the cupcake. It gives us, a little bit of extra room to tuck it in. I'll cut out a circle, and then I'll put the circle over the cupcake. Now, as this has an imprint on the cupcake, you don't want to be handling it too much, otherwise you will lose that impression. So just be really careful, quite light-handed on this, to ensure that you keep the impression on there. Now, there you go. There's the cupcake with the impression on it. two just plain. So I thought I'd show you a few little decoration techniques that you can use. Now you can leave this up to your imagination as to how you decorate the cupcakes. The imprinted cupcakes, you can leave them as they are. That's quite a beautiful cupcake as it is. Or you can, I'll show you what you can do. I've got a few items here that I can show you today. I've got some milk bottles, just the milk bottles that you can find at the supermarket. And I'll use my edible glue. I'll stick this on. So I'll show you on a plain cupcake. Stick that on. You probably didn't need to use glue. You can squish it in a little bit. I've got a milk bottle. And I've got two little cookies here. They're mini cookies. I'll stick these cookies down as well, just with a tiny bit of our edible glue. So we know if the cupcake moves, these won't come off. There you go, you've got a milk and cookies cupcake. These would be great if you wanted to take them on a picnic with some friends, or even if you have people coming for afternoon tea. It's quite cute. On our second cupcake that we don't have an imprint on, we'll put, I've got made an owl here. He's just made out of fondant, and I'll stick it on, and using the edible glue again, I'll put the owl on. Again, that's quite a cute cupcake, just as it is with the owl on there. Now I'll show you a few decorations on the imprinted cupcakes. So again, these are fine as they are, but I've got a little bumblebee here. He's just made out of fondant as well, with kind of make a sausage with yellow fondant, with some black fondant strips over him, and some wings on there. But I will do some videos on how to make these figurines. And you'll be able to, use all the techniques together to make these exact cupcakes. So I'll stick that on there with glue, and again we've got the bumblebee cupcake. And finally, I'll show you our last cupcake. Got some edible lace here that I made out of sugar veil. Again, this is something that I'll show you in a future tutorial, and you'll be able to make this cupcake. I'll put that on, put a little bit of glue on there so it stays on. Put our lace on the top, and that looks really nice with that purple coming through onto the white lace. I think to top it off we'll use a purple rose, and I'll put that in there. I might glue it a little bit just so it's secure. And our rose is on there. Thanks for watching today's tutorial. I really hope you've enjoyed learning how to cover a cupcake with fondant and using an impression mat. If you've got any comments about our videos, or if you'd like to learn anything in particular, please leave a comment below this video, or visit our Facebook page, facebook.com.au/HelloCupcakeAustralia, and we'll get back to you. We'll see you next month for our next tutorial.